a small box with an inset lid. I brought some samples of them. This is one of the first ones I did. This is actually put a plug in for it. If you see the billets on the back table back there, they are, Tim's got one holding up. Those are baseball bat billets that we bought last year for the club. We sell them for $2 a foot. Great deal. That's what this is made out of. It's hard maple. Some are, there's maybe a little bit of ash left in there. I think the one he held up may have actually been hickory. It's a little bit darker than the other, so I think it may be hickory. But this is a cherry burl inset, so that's what I'm going to do today. But that was one of the first ones I did. I did this one this week as a practice. This was ash baseball bat billet, cherry insert again. I took a torch and burned it after I turned it and before I did the inset. So just a couple ideas of what you can do. I'm sorry. But there's other, I mean, you can do the contrasting wood. This one I did a little while ago. This is a black walnut with a cherry carved leaf on it. Thanks to Sammy's instruction, I learned how to do some carving. And it's a jewelry box. So you can do that type of deal. There's just, I mean, you can do a box with just the same wood with a finial, whatever you like. I like the contrasting woods. This is another black walnut. This was a branch off of a black walnut. And this is abalone, shell, inset, and epoxy. So again, it's a box. I'm going to flock the inside. I have not quite finished this one yet. There's only I think one coat of polyurethane on it is all right now. So I'm going to flock the inside and then I'll finish the outside. But that's just some ideas of what you can do with insets. You can, I mean, various sizes. These are great. I mean, if you mess up this bat billet, you're not out much money. And the insets, these two are cherry. You know, you can save your scraps from where you cut your blanks. So save the outside pieces and you can slice them. And I'll get into it later, but I use about either 1/4 to 3/8 inch thick piece, cut it in a circle, and then make it fit into the hole, which will cover, hopefully I can get through everything today. So, you know, what you use is going to be, you know, something you probably already have. This is a piece of, I think, sweet gum that's spalted. And that was some of the first ones I did also, was using that. So anything that's going to contrast. This one, I think, is the one I'm going to do today, and I have not used this, but I think it's going to look pretty. It is a redwood burl that I could cut off the end of a small square and then just roughed it out round. You see, it's not very round. I'll fix that later. Just cut it out on, you can do it on a scroll saw or you can do it on a band saw. Because they're not, you can see that's about 1/4 inch thick. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to round this blank and I'm going to turn a tenon to fit into my chuck. I have a drive center here, a spur drive in here, and so I'll put that in between the centers. This one fits in my chuck, so I don't have to take the chuck on and off. You can get these from any of the wood turning stores. Rockler or Woodcraft, whatever, has them, and fit in the chucks like that. This is a maple burl. There's I don't know if you saw it back there, the white salt grinder back there. This was actually part of that same piece of wood. It's got some defects in it here, but most of that will come out. So what I'm going to do is bring this up, get my face shield on. Guys, you guys, man, you got to protect your eyes and your face. You never know when a splinter is going to come flying off. And this one's kind of dirty right now, but So I am going to round this. You can see it's pretty round, but not completely round. You can do it with a roughing gouge. I've got a skew. Bumping my head there. All I'm trying to do is get rid of any of the roughness and make it round. As you guys, new guys, you see I am leaning, I am not moving my arms. My arms are tucked into my body, and you see my whole body lean as I'm coming across. See how that looks? A lot of nice grain in that piece of wood. All right, that's actually pretty smooth. I'm just going to take my parting tool. Oops, actually I need to go down some more. There's some tear out right there, some rough spots. Try to get rid of as much of that as I can before I start doing the box. This blank is about an inch longer than what I want the finished box to be, and I do that to give me enough on the bottom of it to make a tenon and just cut it off when I'm done. That looks pretty good. Actually, before I cut the tenon, yeah, I'll go ahead and do the tenon on the bottom here. This is just my parting tool. And the parting tool, you don't go straight in with it. You kind of just arc it in as you come, so you're cutting on the bevel. So these are fairly large jaws. So that should give me plenty of room to put it in my chuck.
Was that a diamond shaped parting tool? Is that what you got there?
I guess that would be what you call it. No?
That's flat.
Flat? I don't know.
For those who don't know, a diamond is basically what you call not a point, but a kind of a squidge out on the side. We've got one or two boxes.
This is the live center, or I mean the drive center I was using. It just, like I said, it fits in. It'll chuck up right there with the jaws on it, so I don't have to take the chuck out. Or it can just go right in the headstock because it does have the taper, Morse taper on it.
Phil, for these new guys, is that a Nova chuck with straight jaws that you're using?
It is a Nova chuck. And Gerald corrected me on this last time. The outside are dovetail, inside are straight. There is a little bit of a lip right on the inside, so I didn't worry about getting a taper on there.
That inside's called a bird's beak, and what actually happens is it slightly crushes the wood a little bit. It's not a dovetail though.
So I'm going to bring the tail stock back up. This is not tight yet. So I'm going to go back into the same point I was in to keep it centered, and then I will tighten the end here. So what I'm going to do is figure out how long I want this box proportionally. Like I said, I left about an inch on there. So, you know, if you look at these, basic design that if you're not familiar with it, is 1/3, 2/3. So that's approximately 2/3 and 1/3. Or they Fibonacci, the golden mean is 1/3, roughly 1/3, 2/3, and that's an aesthetic thing. It's in nature. If you look at a lot of things, that's just kind of the way they are. So I'm going to make this one probably about the same size as this one, the same as my other one. So somewhere roughly down here, I'm going to put a mark. And that will be, actually I'm going to do a little bit more, a little bit shorter to give me a little more room here. This is where I'm shooting for the bottom of the box to be. And then this is actually called a Fibonacci gauge. If you look online, it's FIB something. I'm not sure how you spell Fibonacci. But there's plans all over the internet on how to make these. And this is automatically, it just kind of spreads out. So I can take where my intended end is, and my top's going to be, I'm going to square this up so it'll be a little bit shorter. So that is roughly 1/3 and 2/3 of that box. So that is going to be where I shoot for my lid to part it off. So I'm going to right now I have a narrow parting tool. I'm just going to put a groove here just to kind of mark it so the pencil mark doesn't come off. If I can get my hood back down there, caught on something there. So I'm just going to go in a little bit. And then I'm going to square up this end so I have a nice square end here, at least the first part of it. And I'm going to do it with a skew. If you have not done this, it works really well on the long, what they call the long point. This is the short, this is the long. But I'm just going to come in here right on the end. And kind of arc it in just like with a parting tool. And what this does, it gives you a nice smooth cut. And I'm not worried about going to the center because I'm only going, because I'm going to hollow that out for the inset. So that'll leave my edge nice and smooth here. Get that out of the way. Then I'm going to come around on the end and double check that it's still tight. Especially if you use green wood or softer wood, it tends to crush and you'll get a little bit more of a tightening on there. Green wood will shrink some and this can loosen. So throughout when you're working with it, go ahead and check for tightness. I'm just going to trim this off right now. I did not go all the way to the edge because that is really smooth right there already. I don't know if you can see that on the end. So what I'm going to do is this is my insert, and it'll be smaller. So I'm going to come in roughly 1/8 of an inch, maybe 3/16 from the side to do my groove for the inset. That gives this outer edge right here is what I'm going to, so I'm going to start my hollowing right there, cutting in for the inset. And I just eyeball this, just kind of what looks about right as far as leaving a little bit of an edge there. And I go in, not quite a 1/4 inch. I use the narrow parting tool for the initial cut just because it makes it easier to get in there. And then I've got my bigger parting tool. And this one I am going straight in. Getting a lot of vibration because of the length there. That hard maple. It's pretty nice to turn, but it can be hard. I'm just going to take my gouge and take out some of that. It's a little quicker now that I can get it in there. Not quite deep enough yet, so I'm going to take and come back with my parting tool again. And it's amazing how tools disappear on that bench over there. Got to raise it up a little bit. That's probably deep enough this time. Yeah, you want it pretty close to the center line of the wood for that. So that's why I had to raise it up a little bit. You can be a little high, but you don't really want to be below it. Now I want to try to get that fairly flat so that when I put the insert in there, it sits flat. And I just use a skew as a scraper basically, and I'm on the center line, getting some feedback there. And I'm just going to come in and just kind of like I was doing with the parting tool, just a little bit at a time. This does not have to be perfectly smooth because you're not going to see it. And then I take and flip it over and square up this edge so that there's no lips in there for that to catch on when I do the inset. I'm just going to take it around this corner a little bit so that can be real sharp and can cut your hand on there. It will cut you. A little bit of a crack right there where this area is, but I think it's going to be fine. So now I'm going to part this off. And I'll take it down as much as I can with my parting tool. I'm going in and moving over a little bit so that it doesn't get jammed in there. It gives it a little more clearance. think most of these guys have a smaller saw than this, but this one works. It's what I have. This is a pull saw. I didn't think about it earlier, but I can pass these around if you guys want to look at them. They are a loose fit on the lid. I was asked earlier if I have the pop lid on these. If it's a box that somebody's going to use for jewelry or whatever, you don't want that suction fit. The wood, some people call it the wood turner's fit. We always like it. We get such close tolerance it pops when you pull it off. But if you have a lady that's going to use it for jewelry or something, she wants to grab the lid with one hand, reach in, get what she wants, and put the lid back on. You got two ladies here, is that right? Yeah. So. I thought you were going to say Herman, but yeah.
Well, I guess, you know, shoot fits.
Not you, Herman, right? So you don't want a real tight fit. And that gives you an excuse if you mess it up. It's a little loose. That's okay. I'm going to square this end off now, smooth it up before I hollow it. So I've got my spindle gouge. I'm not really worried about the center, but I want a nice crisp outside edge here. So I've got this held 90 degrees on the tool rest here, so I get that point first. I have a bad habit of getting the catch here and dragging it down and messing up the outside, so I'm trying to come in very slowly, just take a little bit of a cut. Yeah, see, it jumped on me a little bit there. I just want to check and make sure that the edge, I got rid of my saw marks and the parting tool marks there, because this will be the top edge. Oh, this one's got a little chip in it there. So I'm going to do, this is going to have to be brought down to get rid of that where it chipped out. So I'm going to make this a little bit thicker here right now, and then we'll narrow the outside and finish the outside later. This piece, I don't know if you can see that. Where do you want it, Gerald? Yeah, right here. I don't know if you can see this line of grain here. Really some pretty grain. And then if you go back to the end, you can see it runs all the way across here and comes out on the other side is this dark spot here. So that's just that piece of wood. I'm going to take my skew, and in the center here, I need to raise that up a little bit. I'm just going to make a little dimple. What this is going to do is when I go to drill it, because I'll drill a depth hole to make it easier, this will help the drill bit to center. That's something Gerald taught me. If you don't have that there, your drill bit may tend to wander a little bit as you try to drill. But if you start out with that little dimple there, it just helps it to get a better start. All right, I know I brought it. There it is. Chuck, I think that's a 3/8 inch bit just to get me a start. This is my intended stopping point here, or bottom of the box. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to leave it probably a good 1/4 of an inch shy of that, because I always end up fighting to get the bottom smooth, and I always take out more wood than I think I'm going to take out on the bottom. So I'm just going to put a piece of tape to give me a rough idea of where to stop when I drill this.
You use the Forstner bit sometime?
I have in the past, but it's just as easy to use this and hollow the way I'm going to do this. You know, Forstner bits will work, and you can get a bigger section. But one of the things you got to really watch for is the Forstner bit is in the center of it. You got that point, and so that tip is at least 1/8 to 3/16 inch of a inch deeper than where the bit is actually cutting. So you got to make sure you stop real short. And it's kind of like the point on this. I got to make sure I stop short, because where the wings of the drill bit are back, so there will be a little bit of a dimple there. If you're new to turning, haven't done this, you want to use 400 to 500 RPM when you're drilling. You don't want it real fast.
Or 900.
Or somebody has a minimum speed of 900 to work too. But you always want to have a hand on your chuck, just to make sure it doesn't get away from you. If it happened to, not likely, but if it did come out and started swinging around in there, it could hurt you. So this is just to kind of stabilize it and keep it from moving. And I'm going to go in a little bit and then back it out to get the chips out. You can also, depending on how sharp your bit is, you can also just kind of push it in, though this is pretty hard. So I'll stick with the hand wheel. So I'm just going to go to that tape and stop. You gentlemen were asking about this jet lathe. It's very smooth. It is a nice lathe. We've had this, what, 4 years, 3-4 years now? Something like that. And what's that? And have not had any issues with it. They make a good piece of equipment. And I'm going to do the same thing as I did on the top. Well, I take that back. I almost messed up. If you look, the lid goes over. So I'm actually going to cut this outside groove first, and that's going to take care of that chip I had. I almost messed up and didn't do that. So I want this. You can do it either way. You can have the lid fit inside or outside. I just prefer the outside. So I'm going to go ahead and cut, I don't know, was that 3/16 or so? Make a groove around there for the lid, which I will fit in a little bit.
Do you have a double step on both the lid and the body? Like, the lid comes on the outside, but then does it have an inset up inside the lid?
Yes. When it's passed around, if you look, turn it over and look, it's hollowed out in there some. So what I'm going to do, got my skew again, and I'm going to use it to make what they call a peeling cut. So I'm coming up at an angle, and it's just like the parting tool. You kind of come in and arc it in. And I don't take a lot of measurements. I'm just kind of looking at it. I want to try to make this edge here real crisp, so I want to make sure I get rid of any chips or anything. That's actually pretty good. That's pretty smooth. I was going to come in here and smooth this up, but it actually did pretty good. The sides I want to be perpendicular to the, parallel to the side of the box. It looks like I have maybe a little bit of a taper, so I'm just going to clean that up just a little bit. So I'm just going to scrape a little bit, and you guys probably can't see it, but this actually is undercut a little bit on this lip right here on the lip. It actually comes up the side of the box and then goes in a little bit, so that when the lid sits on there, it's only touching this outside edge. If you get this tapered the other way, then your lid may not sit flat. You may have a gap. But if you taper the inside of the lid and the inside of this groove right here back in, you get a better square fit. Yes, Tim?
I think it was, I make my boxes with the receiving tenon on the bottom, okay?
I'm sorry, say it again, with the what?
That tenon, what I call the receiving tenon, you know.
Oh, receiving, yeah.
That's where I normally cut mine. But there's a school of thought that says that if you put it on the lid, well, what, they say it's a better fit. I don't see how it could be, but does anybody have an opinion on that? Sam, anybody?
Which way do you do your boxes, Sammy?
I don't know what Tim's calling the receiving end, but
Well,
inside my lid is considered the female end, and
Okay.
the male end's on the bottom.
Right, so like I'm doing it here.
Yeah, and that's the way I do
Yeah.
mine. But I've been studying this. Some people do the other way. I think Charlie White even had something to say about it being a better fit or it looks better. I don't know. I just wanted to know what the school of thought was.
I guess maybe when the lid is off, you would just see it. You wouldn't have this step here. So if you did it the other way, you would look more. Yeah, if this was the bottom, it would be flat instead of having this sticking up. So.
I've read articles, and again, I learned a little bit from Charlie. He always did his lid first, and I don't see what the difference is, but he swore there was a difference.
I don't know, because what I.
Burning with a transformer out of a microwave, so that never can disregard all that.
Yeah. You can do it different ways because I am making this one with an inset. It's easier, actually, in some ways, because what I can do is I'm going to put a chuck in here. One thing I screwed up and did not do is make sure it fits in my chuck. Let's hope it does, or I'll be starting another one. I better check that now before I get too far. These jaws are a little bit smaller than that one, but I did forget that when I did this, so hopefully.
So to hollow out your lid, you're going to catch it on top.
Yeah, and that is going to work. Yeah, so that actually doubles as my tenon or the recess for my chuck when I do the lid. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to come in again 1/8 of an inch or maybe a little bit more in here to start my hollowing. So I want to mark, this will be the mark of what I'm going to aim for. It's the thickness of the box. I don't want, this is hard wood, it's not soft wood, so it's not going to break very easily, so I don't have to worry too much about it. But if it was a softer wood, you may want it thicker. This hard maple is pretty strong, it works really well. So I'm going to start hollowing just with my spindle gouge here just a little bit, just to get it started. Then I'm going to switch to an easy wood tool. This one actually, I've got a piece of tape there, kind of gives me a guideline on how deep. It happened to be the same as that one. If you have not used the easy wood, they are great for hollowing. That carbide cutter right there will just, it goes through real quick. It just, to me, they don't leave a real, they leave a smooth finish, but they don't leave a, I'm sorry, our cameraman's not moving the camera. I got it, don't worry. I got it. It leaves ripples to me. I don't get it real smooth, so this is kind of more of a roughing tool for me.
Do you resharpen those carbide bits, or do you just put another one on?
I have tried. They don't resharpen very well. Depends on.
In my experience.
You said it has?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've tried, and
Are you using
that
Yeah.
kind of helps. Yeah, diamond. I think it helps, but it's, doesn't,
Yeah.
to me, it just
Yeah.
doesn't seem like it's ever
Yeah.
good.
Well,
Back to original.
Right.
no.
Right.
And I mean, these, they last quite a while, and you loosen the set screw in there, rotate it to a new position, it does start getting dull. And I'll be honest with you, they stand behind their products. I really screwed up one day and was hollowing way deeper than I should have. I got one heck of a catch. I actually bent the tool. And somebody suggested I contact Easy Wood. I think I sent it back to them. They sent me a brand new tool, no questions asked. And that was my fault that it bent. Yes, Sammy?
Warren, you were talking about the carbide bits earlier. One thing for sure is you do try to, I don't think you can sharpen, I don't think they're made.
Yeah, they're not made to be sharpened.
They're made to use and throw away. But if you do try to sharpen it, it's probably not gonna come out right, but you don't wanna do that on a diamond wheel.
Do it on a card.
You don't use carbide on your diamond wheel on the grinder. That's supposed to be a no-no, so use it on the rock, not on the diamond.
Really?
No carbide on the diamond wheel.
I did not know that.
A diamond card is the only thing that'll sharpen it. Even CBNs won't sharpen carbide.
Huh. Okay, well, thank you. See, I learn something new every time I come. Usually a lot.
Just for clarity, so Sandy, you saying don't use, could you use a diamond card or just use an Arkansas stone?
I didn't know about the diamond wheel, the 2-end wheel.
Yes, yes,
Will not accept carbide.
yes.
Okay, CBN's not diamond.
Well, you're right.
Well, whatever.
The diamond wheel is, or the CBN, I don't think either one of them take carbon.
If you use a diamond wheel, you're gonna get a hollow, and it has to be flat. And that may be the fallacy there.
Well, and what I've done when I tried is I took,
You can't sharpen hunters at all. Several people have tried, so it's impossible to sharpen a hunter.
I've taken these off and put them on my, this is a diamond card, and just put it with this face down, and then just rub it with my finger back and forth. Again, it's not going to get like it was, but it does help a little bit. But as far as trying to, you're not going to get on this outer edge and try to sharpen it. It is not going to work. So there are several places who's it that sells these.
AZ carbide is one, and
Eddie, Captain Eddie.
he's gone out of business.
Oh, has he? Okay. Okay. So anyway, this is going to be fairly level, maybe slightly down. And as you'll see, if you've not used one of these, I'm a hair high. It does take the wood off quick. And that's why I put that hole in the center, so I can come in there. You can go in and out. And I'm gonna need to move the light so I can see down in there, and hopefully it won't mess up the camera. We'll see what we can do to get that to work. We have a little one? Or this is working if that's not messing with your camera. Well, I don't know. Is mine going to be in the way here? Let's see. Yeah. That'll probably work if that's not interfering with the camera. Okay. That'll work. I also have a square carbide tool. So once I start rounding it in here, getting down, I'm going to come back, and this is good for scraping the edge. So I'm just going to come in. This one's thicker, got to go down a little bit more. And I'm not going to do it all at once, but I'm going to come in a little bit at a time. And as that starts getting wider down in there, you'll see it'll start chattering because ingrain, it cuts well, it just won't do it real wide. So I'll move in a little bit and kind of do it in steps. Come back out. I'm trying to keep this parallel to the bed of the lathe. The gap here or the outside, try to keep this tool parallel so I get a nice straight side. Now there's lots of ways to hollow this. Lots of different tools. If you use a Forstner bit, you can use, if you have one that's the right size, then it will drill. It may not be perfectly smooth, but then you can sand it. But those that were here last month and saw Sammy do his bowl turning demo, I'm kind of doing the same concept. I did not go all the way down. I'm going to do this first, maybe it's an inch, and get it fairly smooth, and then I'll go down some more. As you get, especially on the softer woods, as this gets thin, it may start chattering on you.
The bottom of your box, are they normally rounded? I know Sammy, his are round and mine is square. What do you prefer?
I generally do a little bit of a curve. It's just too hard to get it perfectly flat and smooth. It's easier for me to do a little bit of a curve. So once I get down in there, I've got a scraper that I'll smooth it up with.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how you compare that to an artisan or a square box scraper going in.
The scraper will cut. You can do it all with a square scraper. This is faster. Then I'll come back with actually what I bought a long time ago. This is actually a box scraper. Maybe easier down there. You can see it, and I make them, all of mine are negative rake scrapers, which means the top edge is taken off. So it's like this instead of square. They're not as aggressive because I could not control. When I had regular scrapers that were the squared off, non-negative rake, I'd get catch after catch after catch and destroyed a lot of wood. Then I learned about the negative rake, and it doesn't cut as fast, but it also doesn't catch either. So there's still, maybe you'll see it's still a little bit of a lip here at the top, so I'm trying to come in. Keep this fairly parallel to the lathe bed. And that actually does a pretty good cut on there. It's pretty smooth. It wouldn't take much sanding, if any. So now it's fairly flat again. I'm going to come back with the round one and go down deeper. Oh, got to go back up. Trying to hold it level. I got a little bit down, and that's when it really grabbed. So I'm trying to hold this fairly level. I'll bring the side down again with the other one. You guys may not be able to see it, but I can see from here with a light in there where it's cutting when I pick up the previous cut. And that actually did pretty good there, and the thickness is pretty even going down. But if you work your way back and forth between, you have more wood supporting your cuts. So you're not going to get the chatter as much. It's better to do it that way. So what I'm doing now is I'm trying to go down to the bottom of that where I drilled it. I think I hit the bottom. Almost. Just a little bit more. If you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. If I don't know the answer, somebody here will. Yep, that went down to the bottom of the hole I drilled. So now I'm going to bring this down. I'm not going to take it all the way to the bottom because, as we were talking a minute ago, I do make mine a little bit curved in the bottom. I forgot to... Yeah, actually, in a minute, I'm going to change the tool rest. So I'm not trying to get it real smooth yet, but yeah, you're right. It's actually kind of a small opening, so it's really difficult to get much of it in there. What he's saying is if I turn it, I can get the tool rest up in there. Got to come up a little bit or out some to keep it from rubbing, and that gives you more support. But what I've got, you can do it with that. Since I've done a few, I bought, this is a box turning tool rest. It's got a little pin there. You can kind of pivot the tool on as you get in there. It works a little bit better for bigger boxes. These are almost too small for this, but I have been able to use it. So you see it gives you support all the way to the end up in there. And I'm just trying to get it where I'll adjust it for the tool in just a second. And you probably can't see much in there. I can't tell. The sides are pretty smooth, but there's a lip right where my finger is, right in there, and then it comes in and then it curves down, and that's what I'm going to try to get out of there now with my box scraper, and hopefully this will fit up in there. See, it's a little long for this tool, the handle hit, so I kind of have to come at an angle. You can see that pin in there. I could probably take it out if I wanted to get closer to the center. I am a little bit high with that. See if I can go down a little bit. Nope, rubbing on it, so I got to come back up. It's a box tool rest, box making. It's a robust. I'm sorry. This is I think it's called a box scraper, I believe is what it's called. Somebody else know for sure? Okay. It's got kind of a recess there. You can scrape the sides here. You can get the bottom of the box. It's even got a little bit on this side, but mainly what I'm going to be using will be from the center over around here.
Cindy Drosta has a tool, a box scraper. Is that what she calls hers down? Don't you have one of those scrapers?
Yeah,
Do you?
it's a round one like that and also a flat one.
Yeah, this is Pinnacle Crown Tools. I bought it a long time ago. It works. We have, if it was a bigger box, I mean, even just a regular flat one will work. I've been trying to work this one around to come up because a lot of these will be ground round this way. I don't have one. I have bought a bunch of tools, so I got enough for right now. Yeah, well. Depends on who you ask. My wife, actually, she's very supportive of my addiction here. I've got to kind of lean over to see in here, but what I'm going to do is that edge on the top, on the side I was talking about, I'm going to start working it down with this, and I can come that edge, this edge right here. I'm hitting the side of the box to smooth it up a little bit. And then trying to get in there and cut that. So I'm just going back and forth. Once I get that edge worked down, I'll come back to the center and finish it off. It's getting there. Still got a little bit of a lip, but it's closer to the center now. So because this tool is too short and and the tool rest is big, I can't lower it down. I'm going to come in at a little bit of an angle right in the center to get more on the center of the box, and then bring it down and around to try to smooth that center. Again, I'm just going back and forth, trying to smooth that and round it a little bit. I've got a little bit of a lip on the outer edge here. I don't know where the camera's pointing. There we go. A little bit of a ridge right there where the side meets the bottom. I'm going to try to get rid of that and smooth up the bottom a little bit more. There's a little bit of a bump right in the center. See if I can lower this a little bit more and still get my tool in there. Had not really thought about it, but I probably want to take that pin out of there. Does anybody else use one of these? Did you leave the pin in or did you take it out?
I left it in.
Out?
Mine's homemade.
Ah, okay. Craig? Yeah, it not had dawned on me until just today, because I can't get over quite far enough without hitting the side of the tool rest on the side of the box, and that pin's keeping me from getting this closer to the center, even though it's a fairly small scraper. That's a little better there. Yeah, that got it there. So now I just need to get rid of the bump in the bottom. Let me pull this back out a little bit. If you haven't done this in the center, when you're in the center and you're trying to do it, if you come in at an angle and come up through that bump a little bit, and as soon as you hit it, kind of move out, it'll help kind of scoop it out. So that's what I'm trying to do, is come down to below it, come up to the center, and then bring it out all in kind of one motion to keep it smooth. It's not easy. Especially when it's a smaller box like this. I really don't want to stick my hand in there with it running and take a chance of getting pinched between there.
They don't have you tried the round, easy wood on the bottom?
I actually took it down to the bottom of that round one. I could probably go back to it.
I've had pretty fair luck with that, because I'm a hunter fan, and I'd rather use hunter,
Yeah.
but it does give a better finish. I found the round carbides do real good on the bottom,
Yeah. This is a smooth finish. I'm just trying to get that little nib out of the bottom. And that's better there. I was actually able to lower it a little bit. Well, now I got to go back up. I got a little too low. A little bit of an angle here helps also. This is as far as finishing the box, to me, this is the hardest part, is getting that bottom to a decent finish. That'll work, I think. He's come out a little bit more on the side. Then I usually go too far, and then I got to fix it again, and end up going through the bottom. I'm going to call that one good, though. There's a little bit of a ridge on the outside. And one more time. That's always a problem. One more time. One more cut. That's all it needs. It's kind of stepping down, and I don't like the feel of it, so I'm trying to get it to flow smooth all the way into the bottom. That's better. All right, so that is that section for now.
How do you sand?
I will usually sand by hand. Take some sandpaper and turn the lathe down and go, if it's a small box like this. If it's a bigger one, like this one, though I flocked it, I hide my rough cuts with a flocking. But I've got some round floppy sanders that'll fit in a drill or a drill press. And I can take those in and out. They work pretty well. They're just round with layer after layer of sandpaper and different grits. I mean, they come in different grits. Each layer of sandpaper is the same grit, but they come in a bunch of different grits. So I'll use that in there. The ones I have are too big to fit in this.
Sammy, you explain to me how you do it. I mean, I'm looking at y'all's product, and the bottles are great. Mine's not there yet. How do you sand?
I use on a box that size, I'll use wood turn, one,
Yeah?
you put a 1 inch, just a 1 inch Velcro sanding disc on it. And I put it in my drill, and I'll drill it, I mean, I'll sand it, with the power in my drill, I'll power sand it with the blades off. And go all the way to the grid.
We have a wrench for this, Gerald?
So Sam, you're using a hand drill, not just a regular drill.
It's a hand, it's a drill, but it's a 55-degree angle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an angle drill, it's not
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
angle drill, it's 55 degree. It's one of these easier to
Manipulate, and you just go through the grip with it.
I just go through the grid with the lays off. The lays on, if the lays is coming this way, your sandpaper's going this way, it's swirls. So if you do it with the lays off, it's going as a swirl.
Now, I'm fortunate I have more than one chuck. I can swap this out without having to take the box out. This keeps it square. If you don't, then you're taking it in and out. What you might want to do is find, I always use the jaws on the Novas are marked. This is number 1. I'll draw a pencil line where it is so I can line it back up, hopefully get it squared back, because it will go back in the lathe once I get the lid done. And so that just helps me, and I don't have to worry about changing the jaws either in between. So I'm going to use this in the expansion mode now. When you put something in like this, the bottom of your edge here, you want that on the jaws. You don't want this edge on the jaws down here. You want it out here. So you put it on there, hold it in the center with your finger. It kind of helps keep it centered. If you push off to the side, you may get it tipped. So just push in the center and then tighten it. And it should turn fairly square, fairly straight. A little bit of a wobble. But what I'm gonna do now is this is the inside of the lid. So I'm gonna turn this down. I'm gonna fit the lid on the bottom of the box. Does anybody want to look at this or? I actually bought that last year at SWAT, the southeast area wood turners, which is it? Southwest, yeah. If you guys aren't familiar with it, it's the second largest wood turning symposium in the U.S., I believe. Behind, only one that's larger is the AAW National Symposium. So it is large. Sammy and I are going this coming week is actually next weekend. So anybody else going? Okay. Herman and Sandra are going. So it's if you ever get the opportunity, blow you away. It is fantastic. It is in Waco, Texas. So just south of Dallas. Was a 7-hour drive or something? Not too bad. So I'm going to square this off right now to get a clean edge. You can see where my parting tool burned the wood here a little bit on this edge. So I was going to get rid of that. Just as a point of interest, Sammy was one of the demonstrators last year at SWAT, doing his carving demonstration, and this year at the AAW National Symposium in Chattanooga. So he's getting around. I'm just taking off as little of this as I can to smooth it up, because I'm trying, the less wood you have to remove, the better your grain is going to match. So that is pretty good right there. To get my dimension for where you want it, Gerald. All right. Well, I use a pair of calipers, and what I'm going to do is make this setting just slightly smaller than this outside diameter of my lip here to give me a target to hollow to. And if you're like me, at some point you're going to put it the wrong way. You're going to make it slightly bigger, and then when you make cut in there, your lid's really loose. So you want this slightly smaller than that outside diameter. And I'm going to take the calipers. Again, for you new guys, do not come straight in, because you don't want to touch this point. You touch this point away from the one that's away from you, it can catch because the lathe's spinning this way, and it'll throw you up. Probably not that severe, but it'll definitely twist it in your hand and get your attention. So I want to be real careful and try to guess where I am here without touching that edge. I usually go in further than I need to give me a starting point and then come out. And then I'm just pushing this point into the wood to give me a mark. Then I'll come back with my parting tool, my narrow parting tool, again on center, and come in. Actually, I start out a little bit on the inside of that mark, and then come out to it. Go in part way. I don't go in a lot. That gives me room if I mess up. It may be loose on the outer edge of it, but as you put it down, it'll fit tighter. So if I get it too loose to begin with, I've got some room to play with. I'm just going to take some of this wood out here now to give room to clear this so I can check my fit. And this is one of the slowest parts of this, is to stop and start to check your fit. So it does not fit yet, so I need to come out a little bit more. And it's always that last cut that's too much. I'm going to use my wider one this time. It's almost fitting. You got to remember when you're doing this, whatever you take off on this side, you're taking off on that side. So if you do say a 1/16 of an inch, you're really doing, was that an 1/8 of an inch? Or 32nd, you're doing a 16th. Is that right? Did I get that right? So you're doing twice what you think you are, because you're taking off both sides of the wood, and it's easy to forget. So I'm just taking off real fine cuts. No.
What you have to remember, Ellis, when you're taking that off that side, if you're taking off just a little bit, actually you're taking off twice that much.
Right, yeah.
Okay, I didn't get it.
Thank you, Don. No, I mean, I may not have explained it very clearly, but yeah, you're right. You're taking off twice what you think you are. Huh? Never mind. And while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to take my skew as a scraper, and I'm going to taper this outer edge in a little bit. So like I was talking about before, so this one is in a little bit, and so is that, to give that outer edge a good fit. So I'm just going to put a very slight angle on this. This particular skew right here, I think was my father's. It's an old Craftsman. I don't know how long he had it or when he got it. So it's been around a while, but it still works really well for that. So if you get a chance, you find some at a garage sale or something, don't pass them up, especially you can get them for probably $1 or so. Not quite. You can use the skew to do the same thing here. It makes a nice clean cut. You can see by the shavings, they're taking very slight cuts. Trying to sneak up on it here. There we go. That's probably actually a little loose, but I can go deeper. Spam risk, Bailey, Mississippi. Anybody know where Bailey is?
Where?
Bailey, Mississippi. Is it? Huh? Yeah, I said it's spam risk, definitely. I don't know anybody in Bailey, Mississippi. I'm coming back in here now. I'm just trying to make this a little bit deeper because as you can see, it did not fit all the way down. The lid was a little loose. Or not loose, it did not go on far enough. You got another camera view, Gerald, or do I need to move the camera? Because every time I come around, I'm blocking it, I think. Oh. There we go. So there, we got a good fit there now. It's loose, but it fits. Could have been a little bit tighter, but it's going all the way down.
Do you ever have issues with top and bottom diameter, not being the same, like the top's a little bigger than the bottom, or
Yeah.
how do you address that?
I'll because that's the one same way. I don't know if it's relieving tension and one expands or whatever or shrinks, but they don't line up. So what I'm going to do when I'm done is I'll put that back on, put the lid on, bring the tailstock up, and match them. Forgot what I was doing. I am going to, because I make these lids fairly thick, I will hollow this out some. I have quite a bit of room here because this is only, an eighth, maybe a little bit over an eighth of an inch deep here on the top. So I'm going to get rid of some of this in here. Just mainly for looks. So when you pick it up and you open it up and look inside, so what I tend to do is just kind of curve it in. And if you happen to go too far, then you'll have an inset lid all the way through. It'll show on the inside. Just clean up the hole and make it look like you intended to do that. This is not real smooth here, so I'm going to take, this is just the round nose scraper, and I'm just going to smooth it up. It gets rid of a lot of the ridges. Having a wide yes, it is. And this is what I was talking about. You may be able to see it better here. See, I'm coming down below the center and bringing it up and then out to get rid of that little nib in the center. Just a little bit more here. Go down just a hair. Whoop.
Bill, I've seen some boxes where they would take a spiraling tool or decorating elf or
Tim, you were about three.
tool, something like that, you know, kind of poo-poo it up and then,
You're about 3 steps ahead of me.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm picking at you. But yeah, you know, it's amazing. You watch people, they'll pick up the boxes and they look inside to see, especially wood turners. They want to see what you did. Because that really shows is the details is what really makes the piece. And all of us start out, we aren't anywhere near what we end up being as far as wood turners. So what Tim's talking about is this is my homemade spiraling tool. Just a handle I made. It's got a bearing in there. This is a squared off Dremel cutter. It's just a cylinder that fits in there, and I did not know it at the time. A lot of people put magnets in there because this one will fall out if I turn it upside down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a spiral in here. So you want to turn the lathe down. I use, for this one, about 700 RPM, somewhere around there. Seems to work pretty good for this one. I've got to come down. I want it down close to the center of the piece. And all I'm going to do is come in here and on this edge right here is hold it in there and move it in, and I'll cut a nice spiral in it. And I'm pushing fairly hard on that. And I did not bring it, but I have some Scotch-Brite. Now, you probably can't see that, but Scotch-Brite. I've got the purple Scotch-Brite, which is kind of coarse. I don't know what the grit relation is, but you hit that, it'll just take the fuzzies off when you do this. But this hard maple, man, it just does so nice. If you're using a softer wood, sweet gum or something like that, it'll probably get some tear out. It may not work, but these baseball billets, they work perfect for that.
That's green.
That'll work. Thank you. Is that the one we had for WD-40 for cleaning the bed? Maybe full of oil. Yeah, it smells like it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that one's. This will work. It really doesn't need much cleanup, but it's just all you do is just take it in there, and it's just like sandpaper. If you guys aren't familiar with it, and it just kind of smooths it up. Actually, I got a little bit of green in there. The green came off. Oh well, I can probably take a wire brush or something when I get home and clean that up. There you go. What I'm going to do now is where I started and where I stopped, I'm going to put a groove just to kind of highlight that in there. And I do the pencil mark because I can't see when the lathe is spinning where it starts and stops as easily. So that'll give me a place to shoot for. This is my fancy point tool. It is a Harbor Freight screwdriver that I just ground to a point, and it's got a little bit of a curve to it because I was trying to get around something once. I think I had the tailstock up and I was trying to work around it, so I bent it a little bit, but it works great for putting grooves in, and if I screw it up or wear it out, it's what, $3 at Harbor Freight or something. They don't stay sharp real long, but they're easy to sharpen. So I'm just gonna put a little groove in there. I actually need to get this a little bit closer. we doing on time?
11 o'clock.
Okay. Good. Coffee break. All right. Now, what Tim was asking about, as far as it fitting, the fit changing when you turn them separate like that, is they will, I don't know if you can see that or not. Ah, wrong way. This one, you can feel just a little bit of a lip. And what I always do is I put it back on. That was one of the reasons I did not take that out of the bottom, is so I can put these two pieces together.
You ever use the set screw?
I do on at home. I forgot the Allen wrench, but so I took it out for here. But yes, I have always been in the habit of using it. He's talking about there's a Allen set screw that goes in here to keep it from spinning. I have never had any problems getting it coming off. You saw earlier I had to use a wrench, but for those that don't know, I'm was an aircraft mechanic, and we had all kinds of safety devices on airplanes, and so that's the way I grew up basically. So what? Oh yeah. Well, no, because actually it unscrews in this direction, and actually we had one of our mini lathes once. We had one on, and I don't know what was happening, but every time you would turn it off, it would slow down so fast the chuck was unscrewing. Because to unscrew is this direction. Now, yeah, if you're turning it in reverse, it could unscrew, but sometimes just when it's stopping, the braking action will cause it to unscrew. So I just do it. It's like I said, that was just kind of what I learned, all the safety stuff being a mechanic. Somewhere that lines up. Sure. This will, like I said, it'll fall out. So honestly, what I did was I had that Dremel bit there. I went to several years ago when Hobbytown was still open, because I knew they had little bearings and stuff for their RC cars and helicopters and stuff. And I went in and I talked to the guy and I said, "Do you have any bearings?" And he went through a junk box and found the right size for me and gave it to me. It was a used one. So really that tool didn't cost me anything, but you can buy the bearings. I think that's an 1/8 inch shaft. So if you go on probably Amazon or somewhere, or just Google 1/8 inch inside diameter bearing, you can find something like that. And then there's the collar on that. There's a collar right below the cutting bit, which is also from model airplanes, just as a stop collar for it to ride on that bearing. If you have something in the bottom of that, it would ride on. If you had a metal plate or something hard in the bottom of the tool for it to ride on, to spin the end of the shaft, because you have to have, if I didn't have that collar on there, the bottom of that bit would be riding on the bearing, and it was too far up in there, and I'm not sure how well it rode on it. So I just did that as a little standoff. You can see it when it's passed around. Yeah. Right, yeah. And I did not know that at the time, and that bearing is glued in. I'm not going to take it apart. I just know that it falls apart. So.
I bought a kit from Highland.
Yeah.
I think I paid $12, $13 or something like that.
I've heard they have them, yeah.
And it had the rare earth magnet that you put in the bottom.
Yeah.
2 sets of bearings, one on the top, one on the bottom.
Yeah. I did this I'd seen one, I liked it, the idea, so I just made one and made it work. So I'm not worried about putting the dimple in this with this tailstock with this live center, because it's going to be covered up by the inset. These are actually did come out pretty close to the same, Tim, on this one, but I had them where they come out a little bit different. You can also, when you put it back together, these were straight sided, but you can also, you know, put a curve to it. So it's a curved box, which I may do on this one. But you have to make sure you have enough. This one actually got a little bit thin right here on this edge, you know, the lip, but it worked. But if I tried to cup this one out, it probably would have gone through that. So you have to make sure, if you're going to do that, you probably want to leave this portion right here thicker like this. And see, I've got enough room there, I can actually do that on this one. And I'll probably do that because there's still a little bit, because this was the rough blank here. There's a little bit of a crack right there and some little dings there. Not really that much. And that's from that, I believe. Yep, that's the right way. So see the grain is kind of lining up there and that piece there. So I'm going to probably tape, you know, just do a little bit of a cup on this, just a little different. I don't put this on real tight, but I want enough they're going to spin together, and you'll hear them, they shift. You'll hear it when you turn it on. It will start kind of rubbing. And I actually forgot, I want to make sure. This was my target line right there for the depth, but need to see how deep it is. Now, those were here last month with Sammy's depth gauge. This one's not nearly as fancy. Just a piece of 1x with a hole drilled in it and a dowel, and that's my depth gauge. So I just stick it in, push that up. I've got an arrow on there so I know which end, in case I'm closer to the center, I get confused. And then you can see I am a little bit shy. So when I do this, because that's my bottom, I'm going to actually come on this side of that line. Because like I said, I always go deeper than I intend to. Don't do that on purpose, just the way it is, trying to get it smooth in the bottom, a little bit more and a little bit more. And so I'm too close, that would be too thin if I went to that. So when I do it, I'm going to actually move down a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead right now and mark my bottom. I'm going to take my parting tool, and instead of that line, that's going to be my bottom now, so it'll be a little bit thicker. Whoa. Something cracked. Not sure where. Like I said, you don't want to go too tight. Yeah, and like I said, this whole thing inside is going to be covered up so you won't see it. So let's see if I can do this, some of this with the skew. So I'm kind of trying to cup this down a little bit. Probably enough. It's really up to you what shape you make your box, whether you use a square side, you want to cup it down like this, you want to do beads on it, you want to texture the outside. Really, whatever you want It's entirely up to you.
That's a good one, Sid. I like that the way it.
Unfortunately, it chipped out quite a bit for some reason. So I am going to probably will not be a good finish on this one. I got a little bit of a gap there. I may not have made my recess deep enough. So what I can do is cheat and take a little bit off of here instead of rechucking that and it not being centered. So you got to learn to adapt here. Again, I'm just touching the edge of that to take the sharpness off that corner. See if that fits a little better. Yeah, I didn't have my recess in the lid was not quite deep enough. So now you can see that gap is gone. Yeah, I've still got 3/32 or 3/16 rather, or so. No, not 3/16, be about 1/8 of an inch to try to get some of these tear outs here out. Let's try it with a spindle gouge. All right, that got rid of it. So now I just got to bring this down from the other direction. A little bit of bumps in there, so I'm going to use my round nose scraper and just kind of come in and try to smooth out those dips in there. Still not completely, but the sanding would take care of that, but I'm not going to sand because I don't want all that dust in here. So we'll call that good. Yeah, I don't want you guys to have to be here all afternoon either. So, there we go. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to part this down some here on the bottom. And then I'll turn it around and finish it. Thank you, sir. Somebody keeps moving my tools. I don't understand. Somebody's sneaking around behind me. Yeah, they were there a second ago. So since that's my bottom, I'm going to come in here. What I like to do is try to leave a little bit of a lip right there. Gives it a little bit lift, makes it sit a little nicer on a table, looks a little better. And what I can do now, I'm going to take it out and put my other chuck back in. And reverse chuck this, hopefully. Again, I didn't check. I probably should have before I took it off. Oh, good. Now this time that is going all the way up against the bottom of the jaws, but I'm going to bring the tailstock up and just use this to turn off that bottom. You can see why I left this fairly big. It seems like you're wasting a lot of wood, but at $2 a foot, you're not really wasting any wood. And I'm not going real tight with that. If you go too tight, you're going to split it, and then you're in trouble. So I'll just start tearing this off. Ah! Yeah, not too bad. Up there, got a little bit of a mess up there. So maybe what I'll do is round that corner. Another design opportunity. Work my way back and forth. Keep that as supported as long as I can. I'm also, I think we talk about this every time, but for the new guys, you want the bottom of this, you do not want it completely flat. You want it to be slightly concave so that when it sits on the table, it sits on this outer rim here, not on the bottom. Would move. It could bow out a little bit. It may rock, but if you do it just a little bit concave, it should sit flat on the table or shelf or whatever. I'm going to go ahead and take that off since I messed that up. Yeah, that's actually pretty flat, so I need to keep going a little bit more.
Bowl gouge or spindle gouge?
This is a spindle gouge. It's shallower. Bowl gouge have a deeper flute. And since I accidentally hit that edge, I am going to just slightly round this bottom and hopefully not mess that up. I want to do this while I'm still supported. So I'm just going to bring it in with the gouge, and just round that over a little bit. And again, I like my skew as a scraper to just kind of round that a little bit. I'm going to finish taking this little nib off here now. I'm going to release this pressure some. You can hear it slipping now. I can actually stop that. So it's really not any support there. And I don't have the little pointy tool that Sammy here last month uses. He had a nice little point tool that took that right down and did not leave any kind of a nib. And I didn't want to try it. I don't have one. I don't want to try it on a demo. I haven't done it before. So now I'll just bring this around. And because I don't have this clamp, the jaw is real tight and no tail support, I'm going to take real light cuts. I'll probably forget where I put that now. Since I can't find them even when I put them over here. I'm going to take my scraper again and just kind of smooth up the ripples I got in that. If you're good, you can do this without having to scrape it, but I always get little whoop-de-doos in there because I don't have a good enough tool control yet. Again, you see I'm taking that nib out of the center by going below and coming up. And then I'm very lightly dragging this across. And that actually gives almost, probably wouldn't even really have to sand that. The outside's a little rough. It definitely needs sanding. That crack is opening up. What I'll probably do, if I'm going to keep this when I get home, I've got some black CA glue. I can fill that in and then sand it back down to salvage this. In fact, that salt grinder I can show you when we do the show and tell. Same thing, it had this open there, and I did the same thing. I just filled it with black CA and then smoothed it out. Instead of doing the texture on the bottom, I'm just going to put a couple of grooves. Again, just to add a little bit of a design feature with this little point tool. I'm not used to having this down here. So, yeah, that did crack there. So it'll take a little bit of work. See if I can salvage that. So there is your basic box. If you were not doing the inset, you just sand it and be finished whatever you've done with the top. For the inset, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on here, and I'm going to take this back off and put my other chuck back on, because again I'll be going back and forth. Even though I'm not either. Never mind. I have to use this chuck. The other one, the jaws are too big for what I need to do. All right. So, as I said, I cut these on my scroll saw. You can use a band saw, hand saw, whatever you have. But now I need to get it round and to fit in there. So I'm going to just use this chuck as a jam chuck. I've got a center point, which was where my compass was when I drew the circle. So I'm going to use that on here just to hold this snugly on there. And that redwood is pretty soft. Now I don't want to go too deep with it. And I'm going to take my calipers again and measure. I want it slightly larger. And then I'm going to do like I did for the bottom. I'm going to use the calipers to draw a line here. So get an idea of where the size is that I need to shoot for. See, I told you I was going to forget where I put it. Need to get the tool rest up a little closer. There we go. And I have not worked with this redwood, so I'm not sure exactly how well it turns. So we'll learn together. I've got another piece of wood if I need to. I'm just going to take this down to where I just made my line. And like fitting the lid, this is a slow process. Since I've got that dimple there on this one and it's not real thick, I'm going to go ahead and put it on the bottom. I've been doing it the other way, but I still got a ways to go. So I just take a little at a time. And I can actually taper it a little bit to get it to start to fit in. Oops, I went too far. Actually, it's a good thing I stopped. It's a little loose. Yeah. Well, I could put it the other way too. But then it's going to have a gap. So it is going to be, that will work just fine. You may see a slight gap, but not really. It's a good thing I stopped where I did. Then I just use regular wood glue. I just put it in a small bottle and smear it around inside here. And the moisture in the glue will also make this swell a little bit too. As usual, I probably got too much. So I'm just going to Just smeared it around. Get a little bit on the edge there on the rim. Actually, I don't want to poke another hole in there. So I'm just going to take this live center out for a minute. Chuck this back up. Bring this up. And just use this as a press to press that in there a little bit for a minute. And actually that glue will set up well enough in just a couple of minutes that I can go ahead and turn this down. So while we're got a couple of minutes, anybody have any questions or comments or anything? No?
Thing that I picked up for myself, and I make a lot of boxes, but I don't measure enough. That's the reason I'm not getting. I mean, I can fit the top and the bottom, but there's, I've seen today that I don't take the time to measure the little stuff. You know, I've made so many, I guess it's just
Well,
depending on my memory to do it, but I've learned today, I don't measure enough, and I'm gonna change that. I think it gets a better product.
yeah, if you
Just the little stuff,
you stop and think about it and measure. You know, I measure because I'm not that good, but you know, you watch these professional wood turners. Those guys are something. I mean, they get it real close without any measurements, but yeah, neither am I. But you know, to me, like I said, you can do boxes. You can put finials on top. You can do all kinds of stuff. Or you can do these insets. And I said, I've got, you know, you get all these scraps of wood. Some of it's really pretty. And it does not take much. I mean, you're looking at, for these, you know, a 2-inch circle basically, maybe 2.5. Because these are almost 3 inches in diameter when you start. But, you know, that, when it gets a finish on it, actually looks pretty nice. I had one lady saw one I posted on Facebook, and I think she ordered 5 of them, I think, for Christmas gifts. So, you know, it's, yeah, exactly. Help pay for my trip to Waco. What's that?
I need your friend list, nobody ever buys from me on Facebook.
Have you ever tried where you got a little bitty gap in it right there? Turn your lathe on real slow, take a piece of sandpaper and put against it, and it's
Yeah.
just will fill that gap with that glue, and then
It's gone, yeah.
it's gone.
Unfortunately, I don't have any sandpaper. I forgot to bring, but that does bring up a good point. I can take
There you go.
some of the sawdust and actually, hey, I appreciate that. I mean, this is what you learn from other people. I can just run a little bit around here. Yeah, I was just going to get a little on there and then wipe it around.
What's the bad thing about the glue is you gotta be careful about what kind of finish you're using. That's true. You plan on putting any dye on it, that is really bad stuff.
Yeah,
Well, even if it didn't fill it up just right, you could always take and go back and burn a little black ring right around the edge of it, kind of decorate it. To cover it up.
this may or may not fill it in, but it's not going to hurt it. You know, and that is to Gerald's point, the wood glue, CA, any of that will keep the stain or finish from going in, dyes, whatever, but I'm going to turn not most of it off, but I'm going to turn it off where the glue is for the most part.
You sand it just a little bit, you sand down through that glue.
Yeah. And I could take, and I may, once I get it done, take the point tool and run and cut a groove around it, and you won't see that gap. So there's lots of things you can do. You know, I'm like I said, even though this is cracked, I can fill that with that black CA and sand it. If you're going to use CA to fill a crack like that, you want to seal the wood, especially some of the softer woods. You want to seal this wood before you put the CA glue on there. So you take some shellac, thin shellac or polyurethane, anything, and put just a coat around there and then do it. And that'll keep that super glue from penetrating around it and leaving a stain. So that's what I'll do is when I get home, I'll chuck this back up. I'll put some sand and sealer on there or shellac, fill that gap with that black CA, and then I'll come back and I'll sand it. Excuse me.
Remind me of the homemade sanding sealer, the E-wax shellac
The
and alcohol and half alcohol.
what's that?
I think it's half shellac and
What-
half alcohol.
That's what I use. I use just denatured alcohol and shellac, and I thin it. Maybe not even 50%, but I thin it. But there's another one that
I use the last stuff to be with alcohol. There's another one that you can use, and they use it as a shining liquid as well and finish. It's a third boiled linseed oil, a third denatured, and a third of shellac. And I mean, it's just more of a polish, but you can stain on the seal.
All right, so what I'm going to do, I took the point out of that. Make sure I got that in there. And I'm going to bring the tool, the tailstock back up. And I'm just going to lightly put this on there just to hold it while I start roughing it. It's going to leave a little bit of a groove, but it's not going to leave a dimple in there where that point is. So if you don't have one with a removable point like that, you can put a block of wood between, you know, just cut you a little square of wood, put it on there, just something to kind of hold that, just to stabilize it when I start. It's not going to go anywhere, but, you know, why take a chance when you're this close to finishing? Yep, somebody took it again. I know it's here. There it is. I was going to use this nice stand that Don made, and I forgot. Yes, Don.
What'd you do with the little, tip that you cut off? You brought it down to a point, took it off the bottom. What'd you do with the little piece of wood?
It fell on the floor.
All right, if you take that and turn it around where the taper goes up in the tailstock, the flat part will go up against that bottom of that piece of wood, and it won't put a dent in it.
There you go. That's a good idea. See? Yeah.
You save them, you'll have
Yeah.
them all different sizes.
Yeah. And I had never thought of that, but you know, it's a great idea. You got that little cone that goes up in there and the flat. Yeah. Yep. So I am going to start taking this down, and you know that glue that's not going to come out of there. It's not completely dry, but it isn't going to go anywhere. Ah, there I go again. There you go. You know what I should do? Is I can take my parting tool and just give a little notch there for that tool to go into, and I won't do that. But that's one advantage of having a thick top. I got plenty of room to work with here. And besides, since I rounded off the bottom, I can round off the top a little bit to match. Of course, I never do that at home, right? It's going to be a little more rounded than I intended. Please.
Quit turning.
That would work, Don.
Never have another catch.
Oh, thanks, Don. See, I learned something else.
So why would you use the spindle gouge instead of the skew for something like that?
You can round it fairly easily. Let me rephrase that. If you're really good with a skew, you can round that over with a skew, no problem. Skews are very difficult to control. You have better control with a bowl gouge or a spindle gouge in this case. On the end here, you can't really cut and smooth this with a skew. You can scrape it. You can do like I did before with a long point come in, but that's just kind of giving you a straight cut. And what I'm trying to do is I want this kind of domed. I don't want it perfectly flat. It's part of this is I do that frequently. Part of it is being in front of a group and being nervous.
Would it be better or easier to start in the middle and do a slice and cut and come downhill,
Come out.
Yeah, that way you wouldn't.
It makes too much sense, Don.
That's not much sense.
That's a good point.
I'm just asking.
No, I mean, it probably would make sense. I just didn't think about it. But really, I'm going downhill doing this way, but I was trying to keep it fairly square on the top. But
When you hit the insert, you're no longer going downhill, you're going uphill.
well, on this,
Yeah.
well, it's cross grain. It's cross grain. It's yeah,
With it cross-grained, if you're coming like this.
Yeah.
into it,
yeah, and it's really a burl, so it really kind of goes everywhere. Yeah, I mean, so you're talking coming this direction.
Yeah, well, full cut.
Or well, I did not bring the fingernail gouge. A pull cut. Well, this is to me. I can't catches.
Yeah, see, what I would do would be a full cut with a deep fluted bowl gouge. And
Yeah.
lay it over and just
Right.
barely slice.
Yeah, I did not bring one. But no.
Criticizing, I'm just asking.
No, those are good points, and I appreciate that. And everybody's learning. That would have been a good idea. I did not think about it. I didn't bring one. I don't have one with me. This actually.
Yeah, you would drop it and have a shear scraper.
Yeah, this actually, yeah, I've tried a little bit with this. It might work. I can try it. What he's talking about? I'm going to be real gentle here. So what he's talking about is taking it and dropping this way down and putting this in there just, well, I got to get the angle. I'm used to the other, and just kind of dragging it across, and that's doing a shear cut. Thank you. So this is a deep fluted fingernail ground bowl gouge. And this is what you're talking about, right, Don? It doesn't want to seem to cut much. Maybe, like I said, I have not messed with this redwood. But you can do it this way.
I think one next put wax on the footrest.
True.
It slides so much easier.
So back, the way I was doing it was just trying to come around and curve this to give a dome. And the thicker that piece and the deeper you cut that groove and the more you get it in, the more room you have to work with here. So I'm trying to be real careful and not go through this piece. It wasn't real thick. But now that I'm off of that edge, it's easier. So what I'm doing, I'm on the bevel here and I'm raising this up till it just starts cutting. You can see that dust start to come off. And then I'm moving it in. I'm trying to float that bevel to keep from getting any compression marks on there, which I'm probably not doing a very good job of. Compression marks, or when your heel of your tool is rubbing too hard on the wood, it actually compresses it and it'll leave rings around that you cannot sand out. No matter, I mean, I guess if you take it way on down you can, but you'll wonder why, and I still do that, is get those compression marks in there and just fight them all the time. And I'm still learning tool control to keep from doing that. So this is actually not too bad. Actually, it tore out a little bit there on the edge. So I'm going to take it down a little bit more. Hopefully I still got some thickness there.
This is where I normally mess up.
Oh, it's always at the final cuts.
Not leaving well enough alone.
Yeah.
That's where I usually just go too far.
Who's in turn, what's well done?
Yeah.
The scrap pile when we go too far.
So I'm just trying to do a real light cut. Yeah. I am going to leave that, but I can also take some of it out with the scraper. Now, I like on this curved, I use a flat, it's not completely flat. There's a little bit of an arc to it. But if you try to use the round nose, it'll kind of get grooves in it, or this will kind of help flatten out those grooves. So I'm just going to real lightly just kind of bring that around. And again, sandpaper will help considerably. But I honestly did not bring any sandpaper. Yeah, this redwood is a little coarser and it chips out. It'll, I think, put some sanding sealer on there and then sand it, and it'll help firm up the wood. So I'm going to call that done for now. So there we go. And